Okay, Disha. Once again, good morning, everybody. In the last session, we looked into the problem of the state, and one of the thing that we can use is the cookies, right? We will just briefly overview that, and then we'll move to the next one. Okay. So, what is a cookie? Cookies are a client-side approach for persisting a state information. Whatever the state you want to persist, you can use the cookies. And how the cookies are used, it is nothing but a name-value pair. So, whatever the for the given name, you will have a value. So that is how you will persist the information. Whatever the information you want to persist as a state, you will have it as a name and a value combination. Okay, and this cookies is a client side approach. Okay. Then the browser will, whatever the cookies you have, browser will save that particular cookies into the system in some kind of a text files, and it will have the mapping for the website or the web application and the cookie. So browser will know which website has kept what kind of a cookie, so that it will be easily identified and retrieved. While cookie information is stored and retrieved by the browser, the information in the cookies travel within the HTTP header. So with every request, suppose if you are accessing particular web application for the first time, it will set the cookies. Okay, and when it sends the response, as part of the response, the cookies will be set. The browser, once the cookies are set, as part of a response, browser will make sure that that information is stored in some text files, and then henceforth, whenever there is a request, those cookies information will be passed to the server. That is how it will travel back and forth between the browser and the server. Site that uses cookies should not depend on their availability for critical features. The users can delete the cookies or tamper with them. So the disadvantage with cookies is user can easily tamper those files, tamper that information, delete those cookies. That is how if the web application is having any kind of a functionality which is very crucial, that should not be using the cookies. This is how the cookies work. First, you can see there is a request from the user. He makes a request somesite.com. When that request comes to the web server, immediately page sets the cookie values as part of the response. So when it is setting when it is sending the response, you can see the cookies are set cookie. The two cookies are set here. You can see name and the value pair. First cookie is name and its value is value. Second cookie is name 2, and its value is value 2, and this second cookie has a expiry date. So when there are two types, as we looked into in the previous, one is the persistent cookie, and second one is the session cookie. The first one is the session cookie. First one is the session cookie, which does not have the expiry date. When that particular session ends, these cookies will be deleted. And second type is the persistent cookies. Even though session ends, as long as there is a expiry date is not reached, those cookies will persist. So you can see, uh, once the cookies are set as part of the HTTP response, then browser will store those cookies in some kind of a file, and whenever user makes another request, so whenever user makes another request, you can see here, this is the request. You can see those cookies information will be sent to the server. So subsequent request will be sending that particular information back to the server. You can see the name and the name to cookies are sent back to the server, and based on those cookie values, on server side you can make appropriate changes or render page differently. So as we talked about two kinds of session cookie and the persistent cookie. Session cookie doesn't have the expiry date. It will end as soon as the browser session ends. Persistence cookies will be available until the expiry date. How to use cookies? This is the example. Writing a cookie. This is a expiry date, time, current time, plus 1 day. So they are setting a expiry date as a 24 hours. This is a variable username, second variable Ricardo. Now, how to set the cookie is using this method set cookie. The first value will be the name, and second value will be the value. So this is the name and value pair. And the third one is optional. If expiry is provided, then it will become a persistent cookie. If it is not provided, then it will become a session cookie. Okay, the one important thing, right? Cookies must be written before any other page output. Before you do any other kind of a page output, the cookies should be written. And how we can read the cookies? You will check using the each set. Each set and all the cookie information will be stored in the super global, that is dollar underscore cookie. That is the super global, and you can access all the cookies inside. So in the previous slide, you saw you set the cookie called username. Then you are checking using the dollar underscore cookie super global. You are checking, you are providing the key username. If the value is set, then it will send the information as true. True means what? There is username set. This will become is set will return true, and this is not. It will become false. That whenever user is set, it will come to this part of the code. And what you are doing, the user name retrieved from the cookie is dollar underscore cookie username. Whatever information is there, you are displaying it on the browser. Echo will do that. So this is a static text, and this is from the cookie. That information is cookie. If it is not set, then answer would be false, and then not, this will become true, it will come here. So if that particular cookie is not found, if you want to take some certain actions, you can take in this part. What are the common usages? Remember me. I gave an example. Remember me. If there is a any sequence for the user, let us say particular web application, it provides a books, and where people can read the books. So whenever they close the session, you can remember what is the book and what is the page number that is stored. Whenever they come back, using the cookie information, you can take out that particular book, and that particular page can be displayed. Store user preferences. If user has any kind of a preferences, that can be stored. And also for tracking any kind of a browsing behavior, whatever the browsing behavior, you can track using these kind of a cookies. Next one is the serialization. Okay, first is what is serialization? Serialization is a process of converting object or any kind of a data into binary format, that is zeros and ones. Okay, serialization is the process of taking a complicated object. Not only object, you can take arrays and other data types, and reducing it down to zeros and ones, either for the storage purpose or the transmission purpose. So this is how we can store the objects, okay, that can be saved using this serialization. Or if you want to transmit that particular object to some other location, you can use it for the transmission. So in case of a PHP, this is the method that is used, serialize function. So it can be used to reduce any object into an binary string. Serialize is the method. Once you convert any object into zeros and ones, once you do the serialization, the reverse means from that binary data, zeros and ones data, you can convert back into an object. So that can be done using the unserialized method. So In PHP, objects can be easily reduced down to binary string using the serialize method, serialize function. The string can be reconstituted back into the object using the unserialized. So serialize will convert an object into binary string, and unserialized will convert that binary string into an object. And this is the interface we have. Interface serializable. Whichever object you want to serialize, it has to implement this particular interface. So this interface, the name is serializable, and it has two methods. One is serialize and another is serialize, and this serialize will take a parameter as the string, particular string, which will be converted to the object. Both are public methods, and whichever object is implementing this particular interface, that is serializable, must provide the implementation for the serialize. So you don't see the interfaces doesn't provide the implementation. Interfaces provide just the what type of a function declaration. It will not provide any kind of a implementation. Implementation has to be performed by the object which is implementing this particular interface. So object will provide a implementation for serialize as well as unserialized. Okay, this is the serialization and deserialization. If you remember the classes artist, sculpture, and the painting, this is the dollar Picasso is the object of class artist. Dollar Chicago is the object of the class sculpture, and uh, this is dollar Guernica is the object of type of class painting. So these are the objects, and in this particular object you can see these are the attributes and these are the values. First name is set to Pablo, last name, birth date is given, birth city, the death date, all those information is there. When you call the serialize upon dollar Picasso, so you can see when you call serialize upon this particular method, it is converted into a binary string. So this particular binary string, it's not possible to read humanly. Okay, this is how it will look like. And on this particular serialized data, when you call unserialize, it will convert it back into an object. This is the implementation. You can see, if you remember, we had used the artist class. Now we want to make the objects of type artist to be serialized. So we want to make it as a serialized for a storage purpose or for the purpose of the transmission. So if you want to make the artist class serializable, then it must implement the serializable interface. So how to do that? Class artist implements serializable, and inside this class, you can see there are two methods that are implemented. Okay, implement the serializable interface method. Public function serialize. Okay, inside the serialize, what you are going to call, you are going to call the PHP built-in function. So we have the PHP built-in function called serialize. That is what is going to be used to convert it into a binary string. So this is inside, this is the public function serialize method. So this starts here and it ends here, and inside we have only one statement. What is that? Return statement. So it will return, what it will return? A serialize. Okay, serialize, and we are passing a parameter as an, this is serialize, this is open bracket, this is closing bracket. Inside we are having an array, we are passing an array to that serialize PHP built-in method. Excuse me. So what is the array? Excuse me. Array has 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 elements are there, and we are sending a name and a value pair. So this is the name. This is nothing but the attribute earliest, and this is the arrow operator. So it this key maps to self colon colon dollar earliest date. So dollar earliest date is the value, and I told you when we use the self, when certain member of the class is a static, then we access those values using the self colon colon and dollar earliest date. Then next key first map to dollar this. So if it is a non-static attribute, then we access those attributes using dollar this first name, then last dollar this last name, and so on. So this is the all the information. This is how we write the serialize method. And next one is the unserialized public function unserialize dollar data. So that dollar data, that particular, once you serialize it, you will get a binary string. You call the unserialized method with that particular binary string that will be passed as a parameter. This is the opening of the function and this is the closing of the function. Dollar data is equal to unserialized dollar data. So this particular binary string is converted back into the object. Unserialized will convert it into an object of class artist, and the reference will be stored in the dollar data. So once you have the object, then you can access the all the values using the keys. So you can see here self colon colon dollar earliest date is equal to dollar data, and the key would be earliest. You can see the key is the earliest. So whatever value is stored in that particular earliest date, that is stored back into this particular attribute. Then similarly dollar this first name is set to dollar data first. Okay, what is the first name? Earlier example, Pablo. Okay, so that Pablo, that this first will be mapped to Pablo. That information will be stored back in this particular attribute of the object, and so on. You can see all the object will be constructed after you call the unserialized. You will have the object ready, which was earlier serialized. So this is the output. This is how it will look like. Okay. So if the data above is assigned to dollar data, then following the line will instantiate a new object identical to the original. So you can see here using this, if you assign this data to dollar data, then pass that as a parameter and call the unserialized method. This will return the original object. Okay, since each request from the user requires an object to be reconstituted, using serialization to store and retrieve objects can be a rapid way to maintain the state between the requests. So this is same. Earlier we had the problem of the state, right? Maintaining the state. So this particular serialization and deserialization, this can be used to maintain the state. At the end of the request, you store the state in a serialized form, and then next request would begin deserializing it to re-establish the previous state. So whenever there is a request, at the end of the request, you can serialize, and whenever there is a next request, you can deserialize and you can come back to the previous state. What was the previous state, and whatever the action you want to take, you can take according to that. Next is the session state. So this is the example of maintaining the session. Session state is it is a server side solution. Cookies was a client side solution to maintain the state. Session state is the it is on the server side. We can maintain the state. So you can see here an example. We have three different users: user session X, user session Y, user session Z. That request is coming to the web server. Then on the server memory, right? We can have those as a user session. Okay, how to have that user session? Whatever is the state, it is serialized. Okay, once it is serialized, it can be stored in a disk as a serialized file. Okay, whenever you get that request from the particular session ID, you can map it to the session ID and retrieve the you can deserialize the file. Okay, if request comes from the let's say user session X, you will map the session ID and it will map to this serialized file. Then you can deserialize this file. So once you do the deserialize, you will get the original state back. So that state can be utilized for the processing. All modern web development environments provide some type of a session state mechanism. Okay, and session state is a server based state mechanism that lets web application store and retrieve objects of any type of each unique user session. So whatever is the unique user session, you can convert that into an particular object state into an serialized file. And whenever you get a request from the same session ID, you can retrieve back the state by the deserialization. Session state is ideal for storing more complex objects or data structure that are associated with the user session, because serialization can be done on the objects. So whatever the objects, if it is a very complex objects, you can easily store that kind of a information for the user session. In PHP, session state is available through the dollar underscore session super global. So dollar underscore session will store the all the session information. That is the super global that is used. And in case of a before accessing the or enabling the any kind of a session, we must call the session underscore start method. That is a mandatory. So this is the example of how we can access the state. First thing is, this is the beginning of the PHP code. This is end of the PHP code. The first thing is you will call this session underscore start method so as to enable the session. So this will enable the session, and then you will we have all the session information stored in the dollar underscore session, right? So we can access dollar underscore session and provide the key as a user. I am checking whether a session variable user is set, whether it is available or not. So is set. If this is available, then this method will return a value of true. Then you will come in the true condition, user is logged in. So if this is available, then this method will return a value of true. Then you will come in the true condition, user is logged in. So you will know which user is logged in this particular scenario, because this session variable, user session variable is set. If it is not set, then you will come to the else session where user is not logged in, maybe it is a guest user. So we saw how we can access the state. Next we will see the how to check the session existence. This is the beginning of the PHP code. This is the end of the code. Then first you will call the session underscore start method. Always check for the existence of the object before accessing it. So how we can check in this particular case, this is the cart session. The cart information is stored in the cart session variable, and this dollar underscore session will have a information about that particular value of the cart, which is mapped to the key cart. So you will look for the you will pass the cart as the key, and if it is set, it will return a true. In turn, it is false, means if the cart is already set, you can directly come and you can access the dollar cart is equal to dollar underscore session cart. That information can be stored in the dollar cart, and the further processing can be done. Let us say the cart is not set. If that particular session variable is not set, then session variable can be set in the this block. So if this returns false, this will be translated to, this is a not, it will become true. In the true scenario, it will come here. This is how you can set the session variable. Dollar underscore session cart is equal to, you are setting it with a new object, new shopping cart. Okay, and you can see session variables can be it can be strings, arrays, or objects. Anything can be a session variable. Okay, this is the how the session information is stored and accessed. Session in PHP are identified by unique 32-byte session ID. So we will have a session ID. Each session will be uniquely identified by this session ID. You can see this. These are the different cards. Okay, session variables, and these session variables are identified by, you can see here, this particular shopping cart, it is from the user session X, this is user session Y, and this is user session Z, and each of those have a session ID, so unique session ID. So based on the user request, for particular example, here we have a session from the this particular user X, and when he makes any kind of a request on this particular host, the session ID, that particular cookie will be sent here. On the server side, it will be mapped. It will check with the session ID of the various session variables. Whichever session ID maps, that session variable belongs to that particular user. Okay, this is transmitted back and forth between the user and the server via the session cookie. So we will have a session cookie, and this particular session ID is transmitted between user session and the on the server. Okay, and via the session cookie. So what is connecting is the session ID. All the information will be stored in the this particular session variable. So whatever the complex way you want to store, you can store it as a object, you can store it as a simple string, you can store it as a array. Whichever way you want to store, you can store that information. Once session ID is mapped, then you will get the all the session data. For a brand new session, PHP assigns an initially empty dictionary style collection that can be used to hold any state values for this session. So if it is a new session, then PHP will assign the dictionary style collection that can be used for storing the state values. When the request is processing is finished, the session state is saved to some type of a state storage mechanism called a session state provider. So session state provider will once the request processing is completed, then what the state provider will store that particular information. When a new request is received for any already existing session, session's dictionary collection is filled with the previously saved session data from the session state provider. So session state provider will provide the previous session data. So that will be stored in the session's dictionary collection. It is possible to configure many aspects of a sessions, including where the session files are saved. So we can configure, we can do some kind of a configuration, and also we can do the configuration where we can specify where the session files will be saved. The decision to save the session files rather than in memory. Okay, in case of a ASP.NET, what happens is this session variables are stored in the memory, so it is on memory, always it is on memory. In case this particular case, we are saving it onto the a file. Okay, so rather than in memory address, the issue of memory usage that can occur on shared hosts as well as the persistence between the restarts. So unlike ASP.NET, it is not on the memory. So this actually helps with solving two kinds of a problems. One is the all this is a shared memory, and if there are too many requests, since we are sharing the memory, it can cause a problem. And also if there is any restart, whenever there is a restart, whatever is on the memory is lost. In this particular case, if it is stored in the file, even if it is a restart, it will retrieve from the file. Inexpensive web hosts may sometimes stuff hundreds or even thousands of sites on each machine. So this is how the problem will occur. Server memory may be storing not only the session information but also pages being executed and caching information. So server memory is not only storing this session information, also we have the pages being executed and some other kind of a caching information, and some other processes might be running. So server memory will be utilized by many resources. That is how saving it in a file is more useful than keeping it in the memory. So this is the server memory. You can see other Linux processes. This is like all the Apache PHP threads. You can see these are the sessions the related to this particular site AAA. This is the information session information for triple B. This is the session information for triple C. Higher volume web applications often run in an environment in which multiple web servers, also called web farms, are servicing requests. So, whenever we have a high volume high volume web application meaning what? There are a lot of users for that particular application. Normally, for example, the sites like Google and all those sites where there is a lot of users of those applications, normally they use the web form. What is a web form? It is the requests are not catered by only one web server. There will be multiple web servers, and the request will be routed to the different servers. Okay, based on the load, we will have the load balancer. Load balancer will look into where this request should be routed. So what happens is a user session making first request will be catered by one web server, and the next request might go to the another web server. In such situation, in process session state will not work. So what is happening? One first request went into one web server, and the second request might go to another server. If we have in process session state, so means inside the process session state, that will not work, because it might go to in the next request, it might go to another server. Since one server may service one request for a particular session, and then completely a different server may service the next request for that particular session. This is the problem with that. So this is the example how the request might get routed to another server. This is the web farm. So web farm is it has multiple web servers, and these are connected to load balancer. Load balancer is what? Whatever the requests that are coming in, it will make sure that it will distribute those requests so that the load on each of the web server is maintained at the same level. Here you can say the user request one came in, load balancer routed that request to this particular server. Then from the same session, user session, we got another request which got routed to second server. So if we have any kind of a in process state information, then it will be lost, right? This cannot work out. Okay, there are two for this particular problem. There are two categories of solution. Okay, first one, configure the load balancer to be session aware and relate all requests using the session to the same server. So we have to make this particular load balancer session aware. So it should be aware about the session. So if it is a session aware, what will happen when request one comes in? It is aware that it is coming from the user session X. When the it will route to some server, let's say it gets routed to this server. When the second request comes to the load balancer, since it is session aware, it knows that it is coming from the user session X. Then what it will do, it will route this request to the this particular server only. That is one solution. And second one is the a shared location to store all the sessions. Use a shared location to store sessions either in a database, a memcache, or some other shared session state mechanism. So the other way is using the a common shared location where all the servers have access, from where they will get the session information. So this is the shared location with memcache. You can see here, uh, load balancer gets the request, and the requests are sent to based on the what kind of a load it is. It is requests are routed to different web servers that are available in the web farm, and all of these web servers, they have access to the shared session server. This is a shared session server. All session information is stored on this particular server. They have access from where they will retrieve. In this particular case, even if particular request is from user session X, first request is routed to this, it will access the same session information. Then second request is routed to this web server, it will access the same session information from the shared server. Shared location configuration in php.ini. So what is this is how we'll set the this is the configuration file, php.ini. So, and this has to be done on every server. Okay, all the servers which are in the farm should be having this particular configuration set. So we will have handler used to store and retrieve data. So this particular handler will be used to store the session information as well as retrieve the information, and this is the path. Session dot save underscore handler is equal to memcache. Session dot save underscore path is equal to this particular path. Next, we will see the web storage. We'll see the web storage in the next class.